Hey there, welcome back to the channel. I've been reading through your comments and messages, and it's clear that many of you are curious about something that rarely gets discussed openly: the relationship between sex toys and our interest in partnering with actual humans. It's a question that lingers in the back of many minds, but seldom makes it to the foreground of conversations. Do sex toys make people lose interest in real sex? It's a legitimate concern, especially in an era where technology increasingly infiltrates our most intimate moments. Today, we're diving deep into this topic, looking at the science, the psychology, and the real-life experiences that shape the answer. And trust me, by the end of this video, you might be surprised by what the evidence actually tells us, rather than what popular opinion might have you believe. So let's start with the obvious question. Why are people concerned about this in the first place? The worry typically stems from a few core assumptions. First, there's the idea that pleasure is finite, that somehow experiencing intense satisfaction from a device might diminish what we feel with a partner. Then there's the convenience factor. Toys don't argue, don't have needs of their own, and are available on demand. And finally, there's the perfection element. Devices designed specifically to provide optimal stimulation might make human contact seem inefficient by comparison. These concerns aren't irrational. They reflect genuine questions about how our brains process pleasure and how technological innovation intersects with human connection. But to understand what's really happening, we need to look beyond assumptions. The research on this topic reveals something fascinating. For most people, sex toys don't replace human connection. They complement it. Studies consistently show that individuals who use sex toys report higher levels of sexual satisfaction overall, including satisfaction with partner-based activities. Rather than creating a preference for solo experiences, toys often enhance curiosity, communication, and comfort with sexuality in general. What's happening here is that sex toys aren't competing with human partners. They're expanding our understanding of pleasure. They're tools for exploration, not substitutes for connection. Think of it like learning to appreciate fine dining. Experiencing a perfectly prepared meal doesn't make you stop enjoying home cooking. It enhances your palate and deepens your appreciation for the full spectrum of culinary experiences. Now, I want to address something important: the quality of intimacy. Physical pleasure is just one dimension of sexual experience. What toys cannot replicate is the multisensory, emotional, and psychological elements of human connection. The warmth of skin, the unpredictability of another person's responses, the emotional satisfaction of mutual pleasure. These aspects create a fundamentally different experience than using a device, no matter how sophisticated. In fact, for many couples, introducing toys into their shared experiences strengthens rather than weakens their connection. It creates space for open communication about desires, preferences, and boundaries. It shifts the focus from performance to pleasure, often reducing pressure and anxiety that can interfere with enjoyment. When partners explore together, they're not replacing human connection, they're enhancing it. Before I continue with the next major point, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you're finding this discussion valuable, please consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications. We tackle these important but rarely discussed topics regularly, and I'd love to have you join our community of thoughtful adults who aren't afraid to explore the complexities of human experience. Your subscription helps the channel grow and allows us to continue creating content that goes beyond surface-level conversations. Now, let's address another important dimension: the neurological perspective. Our brains are incredibly adaptable organs, constantly rewiring themselves based on experience. This neuroplasticity has led some to worry about a concept similar to the concerns around pornography, that regular use of intensely stimulating devices might create dependency or desensitization. The evidence here is nuanced. While it's true that any regular, intense pleasure can create patterns in the brain, these patterns don't necessarily translate to a decreased ability to enjoy other experiences. In fact, research suggests that exploring various forms of pleasure often increases our capacity for enjoyment rather than diminishing it. The key differentiator appears to be mindfulness and intention, being present with the experience rather than using it as an escape or substitute. What does become problematic is when toys or any sexual activity becomes an avoidance strategy, a way to disconnect from emotional intimacy or to bypass communication challenges with a partner. But in these cases, the issue isn't the toy itself, but rather the underlying relationship dynamics or personal patterns being expressed through its use. There's also an important gender dimension to this conversation. Historically, women's pleasure has been understudied, misunderstood, and often secondary in heterosexual encounters. For many women, toys have provided access to reliable pleasure and a better understanding of their own bodies, knowledge that can then be brought into partnered experiences. Rather than creating disinterest in partnered sex, this often leads to more satisfying encounters because women can better communicate what works for them. For men, the concerns sometimes center around performance anxiety, the worry that they can't compete with a vibrator or other device. But this perspective misses the fundamental point: pleasure isn't a competition. When we frame sex as a collaborative experience rather than a performance, toys become tools in a shared exploration rather than rivals for attention. What's particularly interesting is how cultural attitudes shape our perception of this issue. In societies or communities where sex toys are normalized and destigmatized, they're much more likely to be integrated into partnered experiences rather than replacing them. Conversely, where shame or secrecy surrounds their use, they're more likely to become compartmentalized from real sex, creating an artificial division that can indeed lead to preference for one over the other. The takeaway here isn't that sex toys never impact our interest in partnered sex. They can, just like any powerful experience, can shape our preferences and desires. The key is understanding that this impact isn't inherently negative or substitutive. Like any tool, it's how we use it that matters. For those in relationships who are navigating these waters, communication remains the critical element. Discussing desires, boundaries, and concerns openly transforms sex toys from potential threats into potential enhancers. When both partners understand what role toys play in their shared and individual sexuality, they become one more way to explore pleasure together rather than a wedge driving them apart. And for individuals, maintaining awareness of patterns and intentions helps ensure that solo pleasure remains complementary to, rather than competitive with, human connection. Mindfulness about why and how we use toys helps maintain a balanced approach to sexual pleasure in all its forms. As we wrap up today's discussion, I want to emphasize that human sexuality is wonderfully complex. It encompasses physical sensation, emotional connection, psychological satisfaction, and so much more. Sex toys address primarily the physical dimension, which is significant but incomplete. For most people, they become one facet of a multidimensional sexual life rather than a replacement for human connection. So, do sex toys make people lose interest in real sex? The evidence strongly suggests that for most people, the answer is no. If anything, they often enhance interest by expanding our understanding of pleasure and creating more opportunities for open communication about sexuality. Like many aspects of human experience, the impact depends not on the tool itself, but on how we integrate it into our lives. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Has your experience aligned with what research suggests, or have you found something different? Drop a comment below and let's continue this conversation. And if you found value in today's discussion, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm show this content to others who might benefit from it. Don't forget to check the description for ways you can support the channel if you appreciate this kind of straightforward, thoughtful content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the topics that matter that rarely get the nuanced discussion they deserve.